Donald Trump has just branded Canada as a national security threat. He has decided to burn down the bridge to his closest neighbor. He is doing it with a recklessness that should terrify anyone who cares about the future of this country. For the first time in our history, the President of the United States has looked at Canada and seen a hostile entity. Think about that for a second. We are not North Korea. We are not Iran. We are Canada. We fight alongside America. We build with them. We buy more from them than China, Japan, and the UK combined. Yet, since returning to the White House in January 2025, Trump has treated our alliance not as a partnership, but as a protection racket.
Well, Canada lied. I mean, what they did was terrible.
The president aboard Air Force One posting on social media that he's increasing the tariff on Canadian imports to the U.S. by another 10%.
The directive is clear: submit or pay the price. This isn't just political theater or a standard trade spat. It is the implosion of an alliance we took for granted. We are now months into a manufactured crisis where the United States is threatening 25% tariffs on Canadian goods, a move that has already put auto manufacturing plants in Michigan on hold and slashed lumber shipments to homebuilders in Arizona. But perhaps most insultingly for many of us, this manufactured crisis has left the tourism revenue from Canadian snowbirds in Florida completely in the lurch. The message from Washington is clear. They are willing to unravel the North American economic zone and inflict pain on American families just to prove a point over grievances that simply do not exist in reality. Donald Trump seemed to believe from the get-go that Canada would just roll over like a terrified junior partner, but this time, he isn't dealing with a standard politician. He is dealing with Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England and Bank of Canada, who effectively shut down Trump's bullying attempts not with a scream, but with a cold, hard look at reality. While Trump engaged in theatrics and Twitter wars, Carney focused on the data and the integrated supply chains, refusing to engage in insults because he understands the global financial plumbing better than perhaps anyone alive. The rhetoric coming from the White House has been truly unhinged. Reports from late October 2025 revealed that Trump labeled Carney's refusal to tear up existing agreements as nasty and went as far as to say that Canada was behaving like a threat to U.S. national security. Can you believe the nerve of calling us a national security threat? The same designation given to North Korea and Iran when we are a country that fights alongside the US, builds with them, and buys more from them than China, Japan, and the UK combined. Trump made sure to air these grievances publicly on Truth Social and cable news, blasting Canadian leadership for supposedly taking advantage of the United States, sending shockwaves through the business community. This betrayal follows a pattern we have seen time and time again from Donald Trump, whose loyalty really only extends to himself. We saw him turn on Jeff Sessions, his first senatorial endorser. We saw him humiliate William Barr for refusing to seize voting machines. And we saw him send a mob after Mike Pence, a man who served him loyally for 4 years, simply for choosing the Constitution over Trump's ego. Now Canada is in the hot seat, and we are learning that you can show all the loyalty in the world, but the moment you refuse to be an accomplice to his economic delusions, you become the enemy. The impasse happened because Trump's team wanted unilateral concessions on USMCA enforcement, effectively demanding the right to reimpose tariffs whenever they felt like it, while the Canadians were trying to maintain the rules-based order that businesses rely on. Ultimately, the breakdown happened because no one was willing to budge on the basic concept that a contract is a contract. As the talks dragged into November, auto parts prices started spiking, small businesses in border states began panicking, and the stock market started to wobble because investors hate uncertainty. While Canadians stood steadfast, the American public began to shift their blame toward the chaos coming from the White House, with polls indicating frustration with the rising cost of goods. This was the moment Trump began to sweat, as he values his image as a master dealmaker and certainly doesn't want to be tied to a recession caused by his own unforced errors. That is when Carney made a move that Trump viewed as a serious misstep, but was actually a necessary act of sovereignty. Carney started looking for ways to diversify Canada's trade, opening discussions with other Pacific nations and signaling a willingness to look at Europe more closely. When Trump caught wind of this, he absolutely lost it, because in his eyes, diversifying is just a sign of weakness and betrayal. He believes that any ally who dares to protect their own interests instead of serving America's is instantly labeled a traitor. This has left our leadership in a tight spot because the Canadian economy is heavily dependent on cross-border trade, and the business community in Toronto and Montreal knows that losing access to the US market would be catastrophic. However, we also have a duty to protect our national sovereignty, which means figuring out how to stand up to a bully and ensuring we aren't just a vassal state. Canada is caught in a bind. If we keep trying to please Trump, we accept humiliating tariffs that paint our leadership as weak. But if we do our job as a sovereign nation and diversify, Trump turns against us with the full force of the U.S. government. It is a tough situation, but it is causing major stress within the American conservative movement as well, because moderate Republicans know that a trade war with Canada is unwinnable and suicide for the U.S. economy. Even prominent strategists like Steve Schmidt have broken their silence to call Trump's behavior toward Canada reckless, immoral, and stupid. But there is a twist in this story that is vital for every Canadian to understand, because the resistance is also rising within the United States legal system. On November 5, 2025, a coalition of business groups filed a lawsuit in federal court stating that Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose these tariffs was a massive legal violation. They pointed out that the Constitution is crystal clear that the power to tax belongs to Congress, not the president. The legal experts didn't hold back, with the consensus among constitutional scholars being that Trump's actions were constitutionally indefensible and an abuse of power. George Conway, a conservative legal voice, sounded the alarm by stating that if these tariffs are allowed to stand, we are effectively erasing the separation of powers and handing the president the power of a king over the economy. Even Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch warned about a one-way ratchet of executive power during oral arguments, signaling that the courts are skeptical of this massive overreach. The implications of this showdown reach far beyond just the US and Canada. It is about whether the United States can just abuse its power whenever the president feels like it, which could totally change how the global economy operates. Mark Carney has been working hard to keep the global trading system from collapsing into protectionist blocs, but Trump has waded right into a war on the very concept of free trade. If Trump is allowed to declare a national emergency to put a tax on Canadian maple syrup, what is to stop the next leader from doing the same for political retribution against a domestic industry? Democracy relies on norms and institutions, assuming that people in power will play by the rules even when it is inconvenient. But when those norms crumble, democracy itself starts to falter. As we look ahead, the political fallout is already hurting Trump, with his approval ratings taking a hit in key swing states like Michigan and Wisconsin, as farmers and manufacturers get anxious about the upcoming midterms. Democrats are planning to argue that Trump believes he is above the economic laws of gravity and does not hold the well-being of American workers in high regard, using the rising price tags at Home Depot as Exhibit A. So here's the deal. Donald Trump has pushed our closest ally to the brink, but for the first time, he is meeting a resistance he couldn't bully his way through. This isn't just about trade deficits. It is about whether we want to live in a world governed by the rule of law or the whims of one man. If the Supreme Court allows this to stand, we are stepping into a completely new realm where the president is an economic dictator. We are staring down a historic challenge, and while the economic pain may be coming, the evidence is stronger than ever that we must stand firm. Because the alternative, surrendering our dignity and sovereignty, is something Canada simply cannot afford. If you found this video valuable, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for in-depth analysis and grounded perspectives you won't find in mainstream coverage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.